Hello, this is a quick video to go over setting up of routing for Service Cloud Voice inside Salesforce. The cool thing we're going to see today is actually configuring an omni-channel flow to build all of the routing requirements to send back to Amazon, which is the phone provider that we're using in this org, but ultimately to configure all of the routing requirements inside Salesforce so that the admin can manage it in there, and that we get all of the data inside for reporting around things like Omni Supervisor or reports and dashboards. So if I pull up and go to setup and go into my Amazon Contact Center, there's a few key things that are new as of the spring release, or going GA as of the spring release. First is this queue mapping, which allows us to basically map a Salesforce queue to a backend queue in the phone provider, which is Amazon. And the second is that we can actually now manage the different contact center channels. That's the various phone numbers that you've got inside Salesforce. And what's really quite cool here, if we, we'll call this one our customer service channel. I've already set up my Amazon instance in the back end, and I requested one phone number so that I've got one. But now, instead of going into to configure all the rules for routing inside Amazon, I can actually just come in here and say, okay, well, I'd like all the phone calls to go to the voice tier 1 queue, or maybe I want them to run this particular omni-channel flow. So the great thing being, it's simple, easy to manage basically that setup inside inside Salesforce. Now, there's some of these queues that I already had set up before, but I'm going to walk through how to do this all from scratch. So we'll start off by just creating a queue in Salesforce for our VIP customers. Let's call it that one. So call this one the Voice VIP queue. And like all omnichannel queues, we're going to give it a routing configuration. I need to highlight the key thing to make this all work is that routing configuration is of type external routing. But I created one there for voice, and then we'll go in and add the voice call to it. There we go. Add it on, and then add in all of the users that we want. And, my user Neil here. Maybe let's add a bunch of other people on as well. Now, this is actually only for reporting purposes. The management of the queue membership will be done inside Amazon. And one of the key things to bear in mind when we're doing this is that Amazon only allows for assigning members to a queue via the routing profile, which is effectively a group of agents. So you might want to think about adding public groups to the queues rather than individual agents to the queues, but the idea is roughly the same. It's you get a voice queue and put the relevant users into it so that you can report on it in Salesforce. Now, from there, what we're going to come and do is map it to an Amazon queue. But in order to do that, we need to make sure that an equivalent queue is being created in Amazon in the back end. Why we need this is because technically what's actually happening is the calls being queued in the phone engine, and we're just managing all of it in Salesforce. But that means we need to actually create an equivalent one with the same name inside here. So we'll call this one, what do we call it, VIP customers. And I think that is it. I need to make sure that the routing profile, which is the group for all of my agents, supports that queue as well. But basically I've created the queue inside Amazon, and I can now come back in here and I can map my Voice VIP queue to the Voice VIP customers in Amazon. Now basically anytime a phone call goes into this Voice VIP queue, it'll go to the Voice VIP customers. Now I might want to say, okay, well, let's call this my customer service phone number that I'm going to add. And maybe I want all the calls to go to that VIP queue. Great. Now I've basically set up routing. The contact flow in Amazon is pre-provisioned and set up in a way that will call all of this and make it work. And we're basically kind of good to go. We no longer need to go and configure the routing rules. The only problem, of course, is that we probably don't want all of our phone calls going to the VIP queue. We only really want the VIP customers going there, and we want everyone else to go to like the regular tier 1 queue maybe. So that's where the power of building an omni-channel flow comes in, where we can actually configure that routing logic and say what we want it to do. So let's pull up and come in here and create an omni-channel flow. We'll go into the standard Omni settings, but this time we're going to actually use a pre-configured flow template that already is there. Now what this does is provide us with a pre-built example of a flow that will take in that voice call, do any business logic that we want onto it, like maybe linking a contact or creating a case, and then executing on the routing. That could have some even more complicated things if we wanted to, like defining the screen pop rules for which records we want to open up when the agent accepts the call. But we're just going to do something very simple for today. Now it's got some pre-configured logic where it's looking up the contact and then taking a routing decision off the back of it. Let's go in and change this one to do a check to see whether or not the customer is a VIP or not. We'll maybe remove this one scenario, and we will do a check on the contact. Let's see. Let's check and see whether or not their title contains the acronym SVP in it. So we'll basically say we want anyone as an SVP to go to one place and everyone else to go to the other. Really simple example of a routing decision, but showing how powerful it can be if we're able to leverage the power of CRM data in the routing decision when we do it. Now, if we open up the route work action, which was pre-dragged on for us, we can see here that it's using the phone service channel. We can decide where we'd like it to route. This one was already routing to a specific user, but we want instead to maybe route to a particular queue. So we want to route to that voice VIP queue. And we could pass the screen pop rules in as well if we wanted to. And then this scenario here, we're going to come in and have it route to the voice tier 1 queue. So basically, anytime the customer calls in with the letters SVP in their job title, they'll go to the VIP queue. If not, they'll go to the regular voice tier 1 queue. We'll hit save. We need to give this a unique name. We'll activate it, and then we're basically good to go. We just need to come back into the contact center, change our phone number, and decide, okay, instead of going to that queue, we're going to point it to the flow that we just created, the voice contact center, and maybe we'll have a default fallback queue so that it has somewhere to go if the flow is deactivated at any point. And there we go. We're pretty much good to go. Now, if you're in an older org where you had the routing already configured, then the parts in Amazon that call this might not actually be pre-configured in your contact flow. So for customers with routing already configured inside Amazon, there's one extra step that you need to do to get this working. Coming in and opening up the contact flow that you already have and basically replacing any and all routing logic that happens to be in there. So that's the transfer to queue nodes that you may have previously used, and instead dragging on a transfer to flow. There's a pre-built contact flow called Sample Service Cloud Voice Inbound Subflow, and as long as you point to that, basically everything in terms of calling Salesforce, working out where it's going to send the call, that'll all just get taken care of by default. If you're on a newer org from Spring 22 onwards, then you shouldn't have to come in here to change anything. The only stuff you'll set up inside the contact flow would be the IVR. But if you've got an older org with the routing already configured, then you need to put this transfer to flow node on that you get to from the terminate transfer. But okay, all right, so that's just basically good to go. We've set up everything in the contact center, and we're going to come in and place a test phone call. Now, I've already got my agent on a phone call so that we can see how this is going to work with the call going into the queue backlog. but I'm going to place an inbound phone call. It'll identify the customer that I've created, Lauren Bailey, with my phone number, and then it should ideally put her into the VIP queue if we've got it going right.
The customer support team. We're transferring you to an agent. Thanks for waiting. Thank you for calling. Your call is very important to us and will be answered in the order it was received.
So we'll see down here, if we take a look, we can see that call's actually gone into the VIP support queue. And when I wrap up the call that I'm on, should get it offered to me as an agent.
Voice VIP customers.
Now, just to prove and show how this works, let's actually go in and just change Lauren's job title. Let's make her just a VP instead of an SVP. And then we'll place on one more phone call and we should see this work, but instead she's going to go into the voice tier 1 queue instead of the voice VIP queue.
Thank you for calling. Calls may be monitored for quality assurance. Transferring to the customer support team. We're transferring you to an agent. Thanks for waiting. Thank you for...
And there we can see it's actually this time gone into the voice tier 1 queue instead of the voice VIP queue. Alright, so that was a
voice tier 1 queue.
Simple example of just basically using all the CRM data to drive a routing decision. We could have done it off of the inputs to the IVR that the customer gave, or any other logic that we want to, but hopefully an easy but powerful example of how you can now configure the routing decisions for a phone number all inside Salesforce.